Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Now we've got a chance to drive the 69 fastback a little bit. We've noticed a few problems with carburetor tuning. What are you doing making all that noise over here?
I'm writing a tune for the carburetor.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work. All you need to tune this dinosaur is this.
So what am I going to do with this tune now? This thing should be like, this thing be running real great if it works.
So you've just built you a motor, finally got it put in the car, you fired it up for the first time, you got you a big old hog ass cam in it, and she's just not running right. Having a few issues. Generally, I like to tune by ear. Recently, we've got an AFR to help tune, really dial a carburetor in, and now that we've been able to drive this, we've noticed a few little issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this carburetor off of here. This is a Summit Racing carburetor. It's I'm going to say it's a hybrid carburetor. It's built a little different than your typical Holley. It don't quite have the features that a Holley does, but a lot of it is pretty much similar. I'm going to get this thing pulled off of here and go through some of this with you guys, so you'll kind of have a starting point to getting your engine up and running with a big camshaft and big cubic inch. One beautiful thing about carburetors, these things fall on and off there in just a matter of minutes, if not seconds if you're really good at it. But we got this thing pulled off. First place we're going to start is when we first put this thing together, there's two issues now. One, we was really conservative on one part, which was our jetting, and two, we was really aggressive on basically our idle. Now, 9 times out of 10, when you put a carburetor on an engine with a big camshaft, it's going to run super rich. And one way to fix it on the Holleys, and that's why I do like the Holleys, is there is a screw up in this hole right here. And what this screw does is it actually cracks these back barrels, these back butterflies, so you can close the front butterflies, and you got transfer slots here. You see them slots up in there? Lighting kind of sucks.
So anyways, there's holes right there. And they sit there and put a gas through there. The more they're open, the more fuel goes through there, and the more you close them down, then they'll go ahead and run leaner when the back barrels are open a little bit. But if you open up the back barrels too much, it's going to flood it out also, because it's going to start opening the transition slots on these secondaries, and then you're back in the same position, if not worse.
I don't know what in the hell you just said, but
I don't even know what I said either, but that sounded like that was something.
That confused me is what happened.
Oh, okay.
But basically, when a carburetor's idling, your front butterflies are in a slot. There's a little slot up here. It's called your idle transfer slot. It pulls vacuum across that to basically ingest the fuel for your idle, I guess you would say. I mean, that's how it does. If you got a big camshaft, you got to idle it up, and too much vacuum starts coming by these idle slots, and what happens is it starts flooding out. Well, back in the day, or people still do today, they to solve this problem, they drill the butterflies so they can close that butterfly on that transfer slot to lean out your idle, so it's not pulling as much vacuum by there and putting as much fuel into it. But on these Holleys, they actually got this little set screw where you can crack these back barrels open and you don't have to drill these butterflies. So by doing this, you can close the front barrels. But what I've done now is we've gotten way too aggressive and we've opened the back barrels too much. So now we're getting a crazy lean idle because we need to shut the back ones just a hair to where the front ones will open a little more to get a little more vacuum by the transfer slots so we can run just a little richer. Now all we're going to do is loosen that skid screw. It's going to close the back barrels. Probably you don't need much, half turn, 1 turn. Just do it in little increments and you'll be golden. You can do this by ear, you can do it with a vacuum gauge, or you can do it with an AFR gauge. We're doing it with an AFR gauge now. I usually do it by ear, and that's how we're going to do this. This is a 750 carburetor. Actually, we was getting a super rich idle, and it kept fouling the plugs, but that was before we got real aggressive with the idle transfer slot situation that we just talked about. So we're going to put some jetting back in this. It came with 77s factory. On the highway we're running like AFRs like 17, so I think we're going to go back to like a 74 jet in the primaries. The secondaries seem to run all right when you open that thing up, and we ain't going to mess with that any. These carburetors right here are super easy. This whole top just lifts off of this sucker. Jets are real easy. There's no mess, no fuel leakage. All the fuel stays inside. Let him get this off, and you can see what I'm talking about a little bit more.
You see, this ain't a flathead screwdriver either.
And these carburetors too, as you cam them, you got to put different power valves in these things. And I've never really messed with these. Everybody, or not everybody, but Holley states you check your vacuum at idle with it in gear, and say you got 8 inches of vacuum, you're supposed to cut that in half, and that's your power valve size. So if you got 8 inches of vacuum, you want to put a basically probably a 3.5 or a 4.5 power valve in. But now, through some research, I guess people are doing this a little bit differently and saying the way that Holley does it is actually wrong. People now are actually putting a vacuum gauge on it and seeing what their vacuums are at all different cruising speeds, and they're taking away only 2 inches or 2 numbers away from that actual vacuum reading that they get, and that's the power valve they're going with. This carburetor actually had a 9.5 in the front from factory, from Summit, and we had changed it to a 3.5, and now we're back at a 9.5 because something just wasn't right. But we're going to get this idle situation and our cruising speed situation figured out, get our AFR right before we adjust this power valve. I don't know a lot about the power valve. My little brother knows more. He hasn't really chimed in, but to me, the power valve acts like power enrichment on a EFI.
Okay. See, whenever your carburetor's sitting there running, it sucks this little diaphragm right here. See, like this power valve just sitting here, it's always open. So whenever you start your car, see, this is a 3.5. So it just takes has to go down to 3.5 inches of vacuum to make it where this goes ahead and pops back, or gets to get below that for this finally just goes and gets overcome. The spring overcomes the vacuum of the carburetor and then opens up back how it is right now. But see, as soon as you start this thing, it's going to be sitting there closed all the time. And let's say when you give it full throttle, it starts making it less and less and less, and this thing finally pops back open, and then there you go, it starts dumping in all kinds of extra fuel for your bowls to be filled.
So that actually working that way.
The carburetor sucks on the back side of this thing.
This 3.5 never had enough vacuum to reopen itself.
Yeah, it was always closed.
All right, I guess we were making too much vacuum and it stayed closed all the time. Yeah. The little spring could never overcome what we were doing. And that's the new way to do your power valves, apparently. We're going to get the top off of this thing, show you what's in it, change the jets, And then we're going to get the transfer slots all figured out. We're going to get it back on the car, fire it up, and we'll see where we at on the AFR. This is what the inside of one of these Summit carburetors looks like. Got your jets there on the left, your power valve down there on the right. Your accelerator pump orifice is right there in the top right hand corner. It's basically just the opposite in the front bowl. We're going to get some bigger jets thrown in this thing, get it back together, and see where we're at. I got the throttle, just reach in there.